Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, final. Dude, I was fighting like Nick's drivers. Got a beat.
Live experience. Congratulations.
Amazing. Such amazing experience. I don't have a camera on Nick's. I tried like for 2 days with one.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Why is my camera not working here, man?
No idea. I was also
You
not having.
ugly. Because
You ugly. Let me refresh
made
here,
you
one
ugly.
sec.
Oh, Gus removed his Windows. Wisdom tooth.
This is interesting. On the
There you
initial
go.
screen, it does it. Cool.
Just you know. Let's wait a couple of guys to join. Everyone's kind of.
Streaming live from Costa's kitchen.
Pretty much. All right, guys. So let's start it. Let's wait. People will probably join as we go. Jonathan, I believe you're a new guy, right? You there, mate? You got a camera? Oh, there we go. Do the sound of bellani hammering the keyboard. I know for days we met. No problem. All right, should we start this?
You're the boss, man. You tell me.
Yeah. Usually just right, but he's not being able to speak today. He removed his wisdom tooth, so probably has like a huge face and a lot of pain. There you go. I like his keyboard. So okay, so this is Giga. We're a club. We talk about tech and English, pretty much. And we have here as a guest today, Eduardo, which is a senior manager at Division's Maintenance Group. Hey, Eduardo. Would you like to present yourself?
Sure. Let me know if my camera and my microphone have any problems. So nice to meet you all. My name is Eduardo. People usually call me by my last name, Bellani. I have around 20 years of career experience. I've spent at least 10 of those, 10, 12 of those as a programmer. And for the past 5, 6 years, I've been involved with management. I was COO on this startup. I was right-hand man of the entrepreneur. Also CTO of a startup called Data Risk, where I met some of the folks that are here. And I was head of technology at a streaming company in Brazil called Brasil Paralelo. And I'm now a senior manager at DMG. Thanks in no small part for the folks here. During my career, I usually focused on projects, research and development projects, mostly that involved some functional programming. I was a Lisp programmer for a while, and that's it. And so I like managing people. My main skill is forming, like attracting and forming high-performing teams of developers, and that's me. Nice to meet you all.
Jonathan, would you like to present yourself? Thank you for being here today, man.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Let me introduce yourself. I'm Jonathan. I'm from Jucurutu, state of Rio Grande do Norte, and I'm full stack engineer at Synchro. And I want to improve my English because I want to be able to work in I want to be able to work abroad, and I'm looking for new opportunities and challenges. Um, that's it.
Nice to meet you, man. So, Eduardo, how is it going to? How is work? How is working abroad remotely for you? You know, telling us more about your experience.
You mean for me? Is that for me the
Yeah,
question, Costa?
yeah.
Well, the first time I started this was 2006, 2007. I was working at my local university. I'm from then there will be UB, né? It's fucking açaí eater. So I was working at a security lab at the local university called the UFSC. I'm in Florianópolis, Santa Catarina, and I had a bunch of free time in my hands because we ended up the project early, and like the lab just allowed us to hang there. I started studying, and like I s- be- and then I found out Ruby was beginning to get big, and several posts about this thing called telecommuting. At the time, it was completely new, right? Even developers, that was very rare to have that. And Rails was starting to get famous, right? It was right around that time. And then I managed to send resumes, a lot of them. I shared one job with a friend of mine, so it was super productive. A single name and two guys working. And that was it. It was liberating. Okay, you asked me how it was. I can tell you the history I have with remote work, but fundamentally it's liberating. The money is good. It's much better, of course. That's probably the main attractor, but I don't think that's the main drive, or should not be the main drive if you're smart. What should be the main drive is that you get exposure to a higher performance culture, right? You get exposure to more markets. You're protected from crisis, and you become part of this global pool, which can drive you to grow much more, much faster, much. You're basically competing properly, right? If you're not in that market, if you're not facing global competition, if you're not striving to be the best you can in the global arena, you're basically limiting yourself, right? At most, you'll be like a big fish in a small pond, and that's not a proper way to live. So for me, it drove growth, it drove capacity, it drove ambition, it drove conscientiousness, and it drove my will to become better. I can be more specific if anyone wants, but I think it's a good place to start.
Well, that's good. And how did you move from like Ruby to the current stack that you are working on right now? Because Ruby was kind of popular. Nowadays, you don't see that
Uh,
very.
it wasn't popular when I started, right? It was becoming popular. Well, I learned programming in university. It started with Delphi, right? Pascal. Then right around then, it was Java, right? It was 2000. I went in university 2002. So Sun was dominating the universities. They ended up sponsoring a lot of the universities, so I ended up learning Java. When I was at the lab, was a lot of C++, and these things are hellish, right? These languages are verbose, brittle, and they're bureaucratic. And then the Ruby was very nice because it's supposed to be fast. You can just print. You don't need like string, main, void, args, brackets, return, or system.out.println, something, stuff like that, right? You can just type a string and see the result. It was liberating. My story with migrating from Ruby, which I'm very blessed it was fast, because Ruby, in my opinion, is a dead end and a very bad for your growth as a programmer and as a person in general. The community is not that good, in my opinion. But I was a member of that community for a while. Anyway, so there was a post about Mats, which is the creator of Ruby, where he says something to the effect of, I created Ruby to have a small talk and a Lisp for regular people. And at that time, I was dumber than I am right now and more vicious and very proud. And I say, okay, I can't deal with that. Like he's calling me normal. Right? I want to be better than, I want to be good. I don't want to be normal. I don't want to be regular, right? So I started studying Lisp, and Smalltalk, and the history of them, right, where they came from, and I started reading books, and then ended up like reaching Seymour Papert, Alan Kay, and all these guys, right? The MIT AI lab, started studying the history of the profession, and then Paul Graham, that was before Y Combinator. And from these guys, I started, okay, it's like Paul Graham, for instance, has fantastic articles. And I was very influenced by some of them, like beating the averages and these things. So I started studying Lisp. And then I started getting jobs, right? Common Lisp. Like one of the companies, the local companies, they were doing AI, like image recognition. That was before Python was a thing. And the old guy said, oh, in my time, to do that kind of thing, you need Lisp. And a friend of mine was in the meeting and said, I know a guy who knows Lisp. And then I became like a tech lead for the effort to break captchas. So there was an early usage of like image recognition. I was like completely lost on what the heck I was doing, right? I had no AI experience whatsoever, and the field was very limited. But I ended up hiring good people, right? So the what helped me actually is like studying things like Xerox Spark and how they managed people. And so that was the beginning of my management experience. We ended up just using vector machines. It worked very well. That was when I also picked up Clojure, because of this, the stack of the company was very much Java oriented, and to integrate with Java, it was either Common Lisp, a BCL, or Clojure, and Clojure was easier. And then from then, I even work on Nubank because of Clojure after a while. That's it.
So you pretty much was a tech lead in a field that you had no knowledge whatsoever.
Well, that me and no one else, right? So, right around that time. But yeah, we managed to succeed because I just found people who actually knew what the heck they were talking about, right? And we encoded that in Clojure in that company.
And what would be the secret for you, in your opinion, to like manage a team of people that are very smart in what they do and make sure they deliver the value that you need?
Well, there's several questions there. One is, you're assuming that there is already a team of highly like performant people, right? Which is, by the way, very hard to find. Most teams are going to be filled with mediocre people. The success of management is basically mastering some behaviors, right? Fundamentally, what you want is achieve results while increasing your capacity to achieve results, right, in the future. And to do that, you need to get to know what the heck your main resources, their people, right? So you need to establish a good connection with them through proper one-on-ones. You need to be able to raise their capacity to deliver. So you need to deliver timely feedback and tell them what is the goal, what the kind of behavior they need to manifest. And you need to delegate properly. You need to be able to assign the correct work to the correct person. So that's basically it. As a leader, you need to also manifest some behaviors, right? People need to trust you. So you need to manifest integrity. Your actions should align to your word and vice versa. You need to be able to make good decisions, not exactly correct, but your decision making should make sense to people. And you need to have a good vision. You need to paint a good vision of the future. You need to be credible. So those would be my both secrets of success.
Nice. By the way, any of the guests has questions so far?
What was Nubank in the beginning, right? Right before it blew up in success.
I didn't get Nubank at the beginning. Is that for me, the question? Did anyone else work at Nubank here?
No, I think you're the only ex-new bank.
I'm a ex-new. I wasn't at the beginning. So I think someone's pissed. Okay. When I got there, they were already moved out of the initial house, so I got the second phase. So it was already a company with like a couple of hundred people. So it was starting to ramp up, right? I was hired because of a closure. I don't even know how someone reached me out because of closure. And it was a single building in São Paulo. It was very influenced by the thought of Rich Hickey, right? So microservices, Kafka, and a lot of screens on the thing. I was working with the CTO directly. So they were trying to, they just like got the whole closure package, right, when I was there. So they tried really hard with the atomic, so the temporal aspect. Culturally, it wasn't, because later I know it became very politically oriented, right? So this thing about social issues and whatnot, it wasn't the case when I was there. And that was it. Other than that, was very regular place, right? People really believed that they were changing the world. I thought that was kind of silly. Right? It was just a bank. But I guess it works, right? Sometimes to get people excited, right? But
hey,
I always found curious that people doing a bank think that they're revolutionizing finance by doing a bank.
hey, we need to do closure in a new way, okay? That's why it's new.
Yes. It was very hectic. I remember they had always the plan of being a bank, right? But they knew that it was going to take a while because of they needed authorization from the president, actually, but they got it. The founder was very smart. He knew what he was doing, and that's it. I think the microservice architecture was very expensive. I think the reason why they didn't blow up was because they got a lot of money, right? But there is a lot of debugging, a lot of problems because of the microservice architecture and the whole clean code thing. So my take.
It's interesting, like, because they sold a lot of the image that things were very like reliable over on the side of the technology, at least on talks and such.
Have you ever met any company saying that they're building unreliable software? I've never seen a single company that said, yeah, we had a lot of problems and we built unreliable software. No.
Most important,
but they attracted,
right? Because
yes, they attracted great people, man. At that time, I met very smart individuals there. But the whole package about closure, in general, I'm not, again, I don't want to but when you buy a package like that, it comes with problems, right? Because you're basically turning off a little bit of your critical thinking, right? You're basically buying the whole thing instead of, okay, what is the principles behind this and what does make sense? And that's not a criticism of the bank, it's in general, right? Every company that does that ends up like, oh, I'm going to use React. Then you buy the whole package of React and you jump on it without thinking about it. That's dangerous.
Yeah, what have been moving forward ever since? Like, what drove you to move out of New and move forward with other projects?
Nubank?
Yeah.
I was trying to build a remittance project while I was there, using crypto, using Bitcoin, right, as a message. So I was very much already in tension between several projects, and I knew that or at least I suspected that the company was doing this like display of exponential growth and IPO, right? And I asked for stock, and they didn't have it, so I jumped. At least didn't have it for me, right? It didn't make
Yeah.
sense because I was used to working abroad. Well, I ended up at Nubank initially, so I was working abroad, and no, what happened was I was working in France for this agri-spree company where I did Common Lisp, and I left because of the company was going bankrupt. Like it was very tense period, and then I needed a job, and I was doing this startup, but I need cash, and then eventually this thing showed up in my radar, and I got it. But I knew I could be paid much more just working abroad, like with Clojure or whatnot. So just having a job wasn't really on my radar, right? For me to be working for them, the only way it would make sense financially was to have stock.
You did work in French, like like hybrid work remotely or like presential?
I worked yes, I worked remotely for a company in France, Strasbourg, more specifically for about 18 months. It was an ag tech called Agri-Spree. It was a common list job. So I actually paid rent with common list.
That's nice. It's very unusual as well.
It's a very unusual thing, yes. But it was a common list company. It's very interesting because they did what I think the whole package from Clojure came from something in the Common Lisp community, because they used a Common Lisp implementation called Franz, from Franz Lisp. It's a joke with Franz Liszt, I guess. And they had like this graph database and like to represent knowledge structure, like knowledge base. You guys are younger, but there was this big thing called Web 2.0, where you're going to represent the web in a smart way with RDF graph. Do you guys remember? I don't know if you guys remember that, but this software
No.
was built for that. If you guys search around for Web 2.0, it was that. So I worked
That's
for a year and something for them, and then I moved to France and stayed about 3 months there. Came back and quit because the company was just not a good place anymore, to be honest.
The only reason
more
why
questions?
2.0 is because there are still old people in academia that still talk about, they call it connected web, something like semantic web, right?
Yes, semantic
man.
web, yes.
People still research that, by the way. It's like, it's not going
How
to
does
work.
that
So
work? I never heard about it. What's that?
You can
XML
search
everywhere.
yes, you can search for the database I used. It's called Allegro Graph. It still exists, I'm pretty sure. Allegro Graph, and you can see that Allegro is because of the like list, right? Allegro Graph, entity, event, knowledge graph. And I have a strong suspicion that Datomic, which is the Clojure database, just it's Allegro Graph with time, right? So I did that. That's where by the way, that's where I got into temporality. Right.
Oh.
When I was in France, because it was the only way that I can think of to describe this, it's a giant clusterfuck. Right. It's horrible to represent data like that. It's a nightmarish experience. And then I say, okay, I need to understand this thing about like temporal databases and how to represent time. And then that's when I got into that book from CJ Date and started trying to research this seriously. And that has been not good for my career in general, but at least I got to know some things.
It's not. Why wasn't it good for your career, man?
That's an interesting question. Are we live streaming? We are, right?
We are. Be careful with names.
Well, there is a particular movement in technology right now, quite widespread, where there's this microservices thing where they see using a shared data store database as something very bad for your business and your capacity to deliver software. And when you're talking about like using relational theory to represent information and especially in a temporal manner, you kind of need to share your DBMS, your database management system, between your whole application in order to represent truth, like etc. Right? So it put me at odds with the current way of seeing things. And so when I was at Nubank, I like people were. It's hard to express how excited they were about Datomic. Right, it's very hard because they were like, "This is the shit. This is the shit. This is the shit." Right, it's going to revolutionize everything. And I was the guy who like raised the hand and say, "Bob, that doesn't seem the right way to go forward." Right? Yes, it's
kind of hard to make the point when people think they are moving forward as well, right?
It's very hard to be like the guy who says, "Hey, can we stop and read a book?" Right.
You should try sending a TikTok something.
Yes. So, but yeah, I still really do believe that's something interesting, man. I really do believe that there are very few ideas that are worthwhile in our profession. Very few. About 10, I suppose. Relational theory being one of them. Most are just distractions, including object-oriented stuff.
There's a talk as well on Joe Armstrong, as far as I know. It's Joe Armstrong, the creator of Erlang, and Alan Kay, the creator of Smalltalk, I believe. They have a talk of like hidden things, like forgotten ideas of computer science that no one remembers, and it's kind of like very important things that people should be looking into instead of like the next JavaScript library.
Yes, that is an advice. I don't know how many programmers or wannabe programmers are here, but it's very tricky to get older in this profession. And if you play your cards wrong, you can end up in a very bad place when you're my age, 38, 39, 40 somethings, because if you're used to just doing the fashionable thing, it ends up just draining you, right? You start becoming older, your mind doesn't work as fast as you were. If you have a family, you don't have as much disposable time. So learning the latest thing becomes harder and harder. And if you only learn the latest thing, it will become the Angular 2.0, right? And guess what happens to Angular 2.0 developers today, right? Or Angular whatever, right? So you become specialized in a thing that no one cares, right? So guess how many people will be hiring Vue developers 5 years from now?
Flutter as well. There's been discussions on Flutter. No one seems to be finding jobs today.
So
I have a
you
theory
get my
for
deal,
that.
right? For Flutter? Do you have a theory for
Yeah.
Flutter?
I do have a theory
involves
because it's
Google?
a Google technology. Guess what?
Oh, they're gonna kill it.
The only thing, like I'm serious. Like the only language that Google, like the only thing that Google made nowadays in the last 10 years that actually got popular was Kubernetes and Go. And as a language, only Go worked because Rob Pike is behind it. Google can't create languages or frameworks that stick because they have some sort of, I discussed this before, but they have this C++ mentality and pollutes any tooling they create. And it sucks. And then Facebook comes and creates a tooling that works, that is interesting, that is based on some sort of sound theory, and then it becomes popular.
I agree with the C++ mentality. Google cannot get away from C++. It's a very C++ company, right? And everything they do smells like C++.
Funny part though, people on microservice side, they always aim for like Google, Facebook, those stuff, and like Uber. If you go to those stuff, they're doing C++. They're not doing like microservices with JavaScript.
Yes. Every one of those is very different, right? And they are very, as far as I know, a little bit about them, they are very inward facing. Lots of money ends up doing that to you, right? So they don't care about what's happening outside of themselves. So they're very idiosyncratic. Like they're very peculiar. So trying to copy companies like that is very dangerous, in my opinion. Because they can survive being an idiot.
So many
It's like
money.
you having, they have too much money, right? It's like you have a rich cousin who like snorts a lot of cocaine and does stupid shit every weekend, and you say, you know what? To be rich, I need to like imitate my cousin. In like 3 months, you're broke and fucked up, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
That's a very
So-
interesting metaphor.
But yeah, it works for exercise too. Be careful about imitating like buffed, trim guys on YouTube. Some of them have great genetics and or take drugs, usually both. So and have a
That's
lot
true.
of money, disposable income.
Disposable income, good genetics, drugs, and just follow just buy my plan, right?
Just buy my
Supplements.
diet, right?
My
Yes, buy
diet.
my line of yes, buy my diet. And the guy spends 5 hours in the gym per day and takes a lot of drugs. Don't do that. I mean, if you can copy them properly, yes. But it is a trap that a lot of developers, at least the young ones, right? They go to YouTube, they start doing these things. They don't study the underlying theory. They don't have anyone to advise them, right? They end up just copying people who do not have their best interests in mind, who have completely different uh, like backgrounds than they have, and then they got destroyed. Does that
In
help?
your opinion, yeah, it does. In your opinion, how do you see the industry going forward with all this mentality?
I mean, just give out my opinion here, like being straightforward. Like the industry is crazy, so you cannot expect money to make sense. Like don't, it's a good way to get frustrated, right? As you study more and more, you start seeing that rich guys are insane. And so you should be okay with that, right? Like what's currently popular and profitable doesn't necessarily is good. And that's fine. Doesn't mean that you can't make money out of it, right? You just need to decouple your capacity to like understand reality from your will to make money, right? So okay, I'll make money, I'll do the whatever, right? But at least I'll have the principles to judge it. Okay, this is crazy. It's crazy for these things. They are paying me to do that, and that's fine. I'm going to do that. I'm going to try not to do the worst thing possible, and that's it. But you need to keep studying the principles. You need to keep getting deeper and deeper into theory, while at the same time being able to deal with the current crazes, right? Will be like, for instance, man, like giving a concrete example. I've seen twice already graph databases being the solution for our problems. I've seen twice microservices. Like first it was service-oriented architecture, it died, and then it was resurrected as microservices. But they're the same arguments, like consultants making money out of it, building niche markets and destroying companies. And companies, a lot of people just buying that shit, like hook and sink. So in 5 years from now, I'm going to see that again, as far as I can tell, right? Or something to that effect. So if you're bothered by that, or most people are going to just be dragged by it. But if you're aware, you can't let that get into your skin, otherwise you go crazy. Does that answer your question?
It does. It does. By the way, any of the guys, Andre, Jonathan, you guys have questions as well?
I don't bite.
Just if we cannot talk to them, feel free to send a text as well.
So, like, besides the Effective Manager, is that any book you recommend for personal development as a developer?
As a developer, because the Effective Manager is more about learning how to be a manager, right? I'm trying to get out of the obvious. I think people should study the history of their profession, right? So I think picking up the string of Turing Award, right? Learning their like studying those papers. I think understanding database theory, like the BMS or relational theory, what the heck it is. Never been a situation where someone asks you what's the difference between a relational and a table, and you don't know the answer. But let's see other books, like Dealers of Lightning. Go on.
Yeah, I think you mentioned Xerox Spark and how that changed how that made you want to learn about the history of your own profession. So why did it catch your interest? Can you talk a little about Xerox Spark? Why is it so important?
Xerox Spark? Wait, no. Oh, Xerox Spark. Yes. Well, what happened was like you can track Smalltalk directly to that, right? And so I was reading more and more about computer languages and how a lot of them are like vehicles of concepts. Like Smalltalk was not like an accident. Alan Kay was deeply influenced by his background in biology. So he was trying to get this idea of cells sending messages to each other, right? And so it's an embodied metaphor. And when I read about like how I thought like computers were just these things that were there, and then you start discovering like, oh, the connections with the Defense Department, the connections to World War II, the connections to the intelligence community, the connection to pedagogy, a lot of connections to pedagogical theories, like the UI that we're talking about. So a lot of, when I started studying it, like this whole field, because for me it was just a boring way to make money, right? That's university. I was just route learning shit, right? So I could like make a career and because that was the obvious thing to do. And then I figured out that no, man, this is the nexus of a lot of areas like logic, mathematics, pedagogy, philosophy, and some of these things are not good for you, right? Maybe that what you're using in your daily life contains ideas that might not be beneficial. Like for instance, the UI that we use was created for children. So what happens when an adult when an adult uses things that are made for children? Right? That's a fair question. How does it affect you? And then like in Emacs, like I learned Emacs. So why did I learn Emacs? Right? Oh, it's a fragment of a Lisp machine whose point was to make the computer a tool that is completely under the power of the user. What does that mean, right? So it means that everything is programmable. And it became an exciting experience. It became a part of my life. I started becoming like, oh, this is an actual profession. This is an actual intellectual school. There's depth to it. It's not just memorizing 50 keywords to pass the Java examination and get 500 reais more on a job. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It kind of boils down to the tip that you gave about like study the history of the industry itself. Yeah.
Otherwise, man, I can guarantee if you don't study the history, you're going to be made a fool of. You're going to fall in love with stupid ideas that have been tried like 3 times already in the past 50 years. I've seen that over and over by people smarter than myself, way smarter than myself, believing that they had found the solution to everything, and then I knew for a fact that crap was like destroyed in the 70s. Right? Like 3 people had already really discovered things. It's weird to see that, and it's even weirder when no one listens to it.
You sound like the madman on a sinking ship, right?
Yeah, I'm in the boat already. Like, see you, folks.
And also, what's your goal right now? Your company seems to be very far in your career so far. And do you have any particular goal?
What am I doing? I'm working as a senior engineering manager, like managing a group of 5 guys at this company in the US called DMG, Divisions Maintenance Group. I'm managing Costa, Benevides, 2 more guys, maybe 3, it depends on how you count. And
there's David as well, the US guy, the new
I
one.
was counting the other, maybe 6. So I'm having fun. The team is pretty good. The company has a great business model. I'm learning a lot about how to operate in this kind of environment. Right? It's a very peculiar company. It's old, but at the same time there is this new layer of technology. So it's a company that basically it's a managed marketplace for physical infrastructure. So if a Walmart has a clogged bathroom, they press a button and it gets fixed. That's kind of the tagline. I had some clashes of ideas like this temporal thing and how to operate, which led me to learn a lot. So I'm trying to be more flexible and trying to adapt better to places. And that was a challenge that I had, right? I was not the most flexible of personalities. So that's an opportunity that God gave me to be a better man, I guess. It's very nice to help the people who are working for me to improve, and we're doing F#, which is a nice language. I recommend people to look into it because it embodies good ideas, and it's based on a very enterprisey platform. So it can be a safe choice for a lot of companies, and at the same time, it embodies a lot of advanced programming techniques. Does that answer your question?
Yes, we got a question.
In your experience, Eduardo, what soft skills are essential for technology professional to grow quickly?
Define growth.
Steroid.
Yes.
I don't know.
Deadlifting. Yes.
Learn new things and moving on your career.
Moving to where, man? What do you want? Hard to advise people who don't know where they want to go, but I can give generic advice. First soft skill that I would learn is storytelling. Okay, there's a book called building a story brand, or if I'm not mistaken, story brand, building stories. It's a marketing book, but it explains a lot about how to build stories. So you need marketing, story brand, yes. Learn how to tell good stories, because that's how people pay attention to you. People pay attention to stuff when it's structured in the form of a story. That's one. Two, learn how to speak properly, how to present yourself. So read a lot of good literature, biographies, right? Talk, learn how to talk, to expose yourself. Learn discipline. These are behaviors that are very hard to change. People who don't like have discipline are hard to pick up, but you can cheat. You can like have the tools to make you more disciplined. Flexibility, both cognitive and behavioral. So you need to be able to challenge your own ideas, right? So you need mastery over your ideas in such a way that they're not yours. They're just you should only be attached to truth, not to your current view of truth, which might be wrong. Truth will never be wrong, but your view of it can. And behavioral, right? It means like you should be able to adapt to an environment. You should be able, like, you're going to use microservices, and you should be capable to say yes, sir. Right? Which is sometimes very hard. Like, oh, you're going to do this thing that you don't agree with, and you should say, okay, boss, what's the context? My position on the matter is X, but yes, I'll get it done. Okay, you should be able to make your boss look good. That's a very important skill. Okay, and making your boss look good is very, very simple. It doesn't involve lying. It doesn't involve anything. It just makes you need to be direct. You need to be a good professional, like showing up on time, doing your things, like keeping him in the loop, and always remember, I'm here. If my boss goes up, I go up. And valuing knowledge. You should deeply value knowledge. All these are soft skills, in my opinion. And not only about your programming thing, but everyone's knowledge. Like, oh, Jonathan, like, be interested in people. Oh, here's another thing. Like, think of people as, if you're curious about knowledge in general, like, be very interested in people. Like, look at the person next to you or the person talking to you and say, how can I learn from that person? What can I learn? What interesting thing that person has? And then be curious, ask, listen, be flexible. Does that answer your question, man? I said several things. I don't hear confirmation, so I will just assume yes.
Just made a list out of all the items. So skills, storytelling.
Yeah. 2 books. I'll be very direct. The Secret of Selling Anything and Story Brand. Read those 2 books. They're smart, they're short, they're very powerful, and they will change your career.
Secret for selling anything. I heard about this one.
I remember reading it. The cover is very cringe, but it's pretty good.
The cover is pretty boomer.
Which makes it even better, right? The cover seems like a nice HTML page.
Not gonna lie, like the cover looks like an infomercial from our church.
Yes. So Costa, in about 5, I'm gonna have to help my wife here. So, what else can I help you folks with?
One more question, guys.
I'm old, folks, so I can help you bypass a lot of problems. How about you ask about that? Dangerous. Yes.
Gus sent a question because he's not being able to speak today. If you had to start a tech career from scratch today, what would you do?
I suppose what would I do differently, right? One, I will never set foot in the university. right?
Really? Starting with the big guns.
Yeah, it's pointless for a programmer. It's pointless. I would just one, learn Emacs. Okay, I'll be very direct. Okay, get a proper text editor and a platform that can grow with you. Pick the core textbooks in your profession, like things like Introduction to Database Systems and Algorithm Design, like a book on networking, a book on operating, a textbook on networking, a textbook on operating systems, a textbook on databases, a textbook on algorithms, like 5 or 6 of those, right? Get an SRS, a spaced repetition system, Anki or Ordrill or whatever, and just spend 4 to 6 to 8 hours a day during a year just doing that. So I'll never set foot in university, good Lord, no. I'll get very good at English. I would, and this is very important, very important, very important. Pick an open source project that is famous, that seems interesting to you, and become a core developer. Okay, you can do that. I'll pick my favorite thing, like Postgres. Right? You can become the core dev at Postgres if you dedicate 2 to 4 hours a day in what, a year? Make it 2 years, right? If you study, like you say, okay, I'm going to learn, you can do that to drive you, okay? Postgres, for instance, if you're a core dev on Postgres, and that's not the only thing, but PostgreSQL, you will never be out of a job, ever. You receive job offerings every day. I can guarantee you that. I can put 10 to 1 on that, right? So you can say, okay, my plan is to become core dev at, I don't know, Google, Chrome, Postgres, whatever. And then you just learn everything that you need to do that. And that's it. And being a core dev on Postgres is worth more than a Harvard diploma. It will get you hired anywhere on the planet, from Singapore all the way to Mexico.
Mostly.
Like your USP diploma is worth shit in the US. No one even knows where São Paulo is, man. Like Brazil, like Butão. Do you guys know Butão? Can you locate it in a map?
No.
The average American sees Brazil as exactly as you see Butão. Right? So whatever the crap you're able to do here, it's meaningless. Like your YouTube course with, I don't know, Daniel da Veiga, que ensina JavaScript in 36 horas. So I don't know, I'm taking this out of my head, right? It's crap. And I'm sad to see kids like that, they're poor, like wasting 5,000, 10,000 reais on these crap things. Like, oh, you're going to learn Kubernetes and like, what's the name of the API gateway thing? Kong, and you're going to be a full stack ninja, whatever.
0 to hero.
0 to hero, yeah.
Man, here's the secret of success, completely free. Become a Google Chrome core dev. You're going to receive an offer to get $250K a year from Google.
Do you believe this tip works for a junior professional or somebody that
it can work for a horse?
Horse. Good. I will tell this.
If your dog can do that, he will receive a job offer.
Because we have a lot of friends who never had an experience as a developer before, so they need a start point, right? And yes,
I just gave them one.
Very useful.
Just pick a famous open source project. If like something like Google Chrome is too like intimidating, pick something smaller. but it needs to be something with a community and a reputation. A lot of a big mistake that most developers do because they are on the autistic vibe is to start their own stuff. Don't start your own stuff. Start, like, join a community that has a market.
I'll
MySQL,
start my own
Vue.js.
Pokédex
What?
or Nubank or no.
So, well, for instance, oh, I like Clojure. Okay, so become a Clojure core dev. Contribute to the language. There's a bunch of bugs there. I like Rust. Cool, man. Then become a core dev at the Rust compiler. Do you need to be the best guy there? No, man. You can pick up the trash. You're still going to get interviewed because you picked up the trash. You see? Because no one does that.
That's
Now, there's no guarantees. You're not going to get a diploma. It's going to be hard as fuck.
it is a
But
way, right? It's not a.
it is public, man. No one cares if you're from Maranhão. No one gives a fuck if you're a dog. Right.
That's
Okay,
nice.
folks.
That's nice advice. Thank
Any
you,
last
Eduardo.
questions? Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for receiving me. I'm sorry for not being as eloquent as you guys expected.
Don't worry. Sorry if our guest couldn't be here today. He had like to again remove his tooth today, so he couldn't speak. That's it.
Inside, I am pretty, Bene. Today is what? Tuesday? Yes, Thursday. Yeah, I am pretty. I'm a trans beautiful person. Okay, see you all. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Brother just dropped. Hey, Jonathan, what do you think about our guest today? Did you like it? Did you learn something new?
Yes, I like it.
I remember a story he told me once when he was working for that French company. Did he tell you about the nails story, Mark Costa?
No, never heard of it.
Yeah, he told me once. I forgot to like. I don't know if he started talking about it, but he told me once that he was working for that French company. It was like administering very many farms, and then like he kept changing the UI every time. So he kept, I think, yeah, he told me that story. It was crazy. I think that's how he started learning a little bit about management as well. But he kept like receiving the requests from the upper people. So people just demanded him to change the UI, and he changed the UI every time. And he thought like he was doing that for many users. And like he spent 6 months working on that crazy ass project on France. And then he finally met his user. And he thought like he was doing a bunch of crazy changes for a bunch of different users. And then his customer was like, okay, he was building that software to administer different farms on France, but his customer was his user was actually a single old woman. Like he met his user using the system, and it was a single old woman who had very long nails, and she couldn't type on the computer, so she used a pencil like to type on the computer. And all the UI changes he did for the previous 6 months were to meet the demands of that single user. And then he was like, man, what the, what the fuck?
And what did he do after that?
He told me that he finally knew the wrath of God after that.
After working months for a single lady. But, oh, at least he can optimize all the workflow if you have a single user. Right? Um, hey, any more question, guys? Yeah, Andrea is also kind of busy today. Jonathan. No, I don't think this is affirmative. Let's wrap it up for the day then. Thank you everyone for your time and your attention. On a first street project.
You ever? Oh man, this is my life for the best. Do you
This
ever?
is every day.
It's me every day. Like, well, it is frustrating when you, well, for instance, it is very frustrating to work on something that you know sometimes could be simpler, but it isn't made simpler because people want to make it hard. And I know that we as developers, for instance, we want to think that we are the people who simplify things. We are the ones who simplify processes. But this is a trend, and sometimes we are the one who overcomplicate shit every single time. Like it's very annoying. Like we're supposed to be the people who go and make things simple. That used to be like how people in the 60s thought computers should be used for. Like, oh, computers should be used to just to make shit simple. Like it's supposed to take like this manual work and you're supposed to automate it, and then everyone like profits from that. Everyone is happy with it. But it seems that we are sometimes making our own problems and then offering solution to the problems we make. Like it's that's what's frustrating about it. And I think
Yeah, I guess usually a good part of frustration, at least for me personally, comes from working in issues that are self-inflicted from other people. So I find it very frustrating to have to fix something that is not something that drives the company forward. Like I feel very good if I'm doing something for the company that's gonna make, I don't know, the revenue goes up or help someone in the company to get the job better for them, make life easier. But if I'm just wasting like a week working something that's self-inflicted because someone else did something very crap, I don't find it very motivating.
and for instance, I don't try to be angry at because the problem with complexity and we deal with a lot of complexity every day, and the problem with complexity is that it never goes away. You can only move places. So if you have a system that is complex, you can only move the complexity to somewhere else or to break the complexity into smaller parts. And if you generate complexity, it's worse because it propagates to everyone else. Now, and then to deal with that complexity that you generated, you have to create like a bunch of quarks elsewhere. So it just propagates throughout the system. And when you try to understand the source of complexity, like I don't try to be angry, for instance, with the person who wrote crappy code, because I write crappy code as well. Okay, when I'm under pressure, I have to write crappy code. And then you see like, okay, that person was probably under pressure. It was probably like with a bunch of was under a stupid deadline, and it didn't fully understand the issue it was supposed to fix, and then it had a timeline. So the person went there and fixed it, and then created complexity everywhere. There's also the complexity where things that should be simple are not defined in a simple way, and then they end up complex. So, and then this propagates everywhere. Sometimes it makes a company slow because now there's a bunch of complexity to deal with for things that should be simple. It's seeing complexity. I think what is frustrating is seeing complexity, seeing a way to solve it, but the way things are set up don't enable you to go and fix the complexity right away, probably.
Did that reply you? This? Did we answer your question? You, Jonathan, have you ever worked on a project that frustrated you?
Yes. Let me remember a little bit about. I worked in a project that it was confusing, very confusing, and the teammates was not qualified for the work. Okay, and the team was formed mostly junior professionals. Okay, and and we
Were you able to deliver at the end?
yes, we needed to deliver this project in a short time. Okay, and it was very frustrating for me.
Because of the deadline, right? Yeah, usually that tight deadlines. There's a book called The Death March. I think Death March book. That's about projects
That
like
book,
that.
that book is a classic.
Death March. And it happens over and over again in this industry. You make people just go in a deadline for impossible project. They gotta make a way for that to work.
There's one thing about this book that is interesting is that it has a bunch of emails, like because it's trying to show you like people trying to communicate as the crazy project goes on and the communication becomes worse and the deadlines become worse. It's a very interesting book. I read some of it and it's like it was my experience working on a DevMark project. Exactly like that.
Yeah, it's snowball, right? Eventually, you become a huge mass for everyone. Communication gets tricky. We're even noticing that now in project nowadays, right? We have a couple of managers.
For me, every legacy systems projects are frustrating because usually we can never change anything. Even if you want to add, for example, a Lombok library in Java projects, Lombok uh, Lombok can optimize your time coding because you don't need to write getters and setters or or another boilerplate code. Uh, and in the most part of the legacy systems, you can't even add this library or any other that can make your work easy. And you spent years and years working in legacy systems that you can even use in another projects. The experience on technologies. Of course, you can use the ability to solve problems that you learned in the working on legacy systems, but you cannot use the experience of the technology, for example, because nobody uses the same technology in the market.
It's true. It's even hard to like hire new people as well to mess with that. Not even people in the company wants to deal with it. Right? Are you currently working any legacy project?
Me?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, sure. I'm working on Java Java legacy system based on structs and Spring, one of the first versions of Spring, which is based on structs.
Oh, is that what are those? Never heard of of it. The Java world.
Structs?
Yeah.
Structs was one of the first Java web frameworks.
That's very good. Apache,
it-
right?
Yeah, it was very popular in 2000s. So a lot of banks use it.
That's
It's
interesting.
very hard to change shit on banking systems, right? They just
Yeah.
keep the legacy forever.
Yeah.
You
I
gotta
I,
be
I can't even change the packages structures.
You cannot even upgrade the package. No, that's like in banks. Usually, your argument gotta be very powerful for someone to move, and I never see someone actually manage to move technology from a bank. It's like just moving millions. A single mistake is a multi-millionaire.
Yeah. We spent months to change from Ant build to Maven.
Damn, just to change the package manager.
Yeah. and beauty is very old.
Is there anything that you like about struts that you don't see on like Spring Boot?
What?
Do you have anything that you like on struts that you don't see on Spring Boot?
I'm not sure because we use a mix from these two frameworks, and I don't even know where is struts or where is Spring part. You understand? It's so
Not
complex.
much.
The project is so complex that we can't distinguish the parts because we have lots of modules in the same in each project. Understand?
It's a big monorepo as well. Like it's a giant monorepo.
Yeah.
Oh man, those are the worst. Oh my god. Yeah.
There is more. I believe there is more than 20 modules in the same project, and each module have his own front end and back end part.
Do you have any idea how many millions lines of code do you have there? Because those legacy projects, they are very hard to handle. Usually they start to get very hard like when they get into 1 or 1 million, more than 1 million lines of code. Like because you have too many things into the same place, depending on each other.
I didn't count the number of lines, but just to have an idea, it takes more than 10 minutes to build.
And you probably have a good machine, right? You have a good machine and it takes 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Those projects are never parallel stuff. I know you feel. And you, Jonathan, by the way, which tech stack do you use at your job, Jonathan? Which technology do you use?
I use Java and React mostly. And in specific situations, I use Python as well.
You use Python, JavaScript, React. So you're full stack, right?
Yes.
Which one do you prefer to work? Okay, go ahead. See you, man.
Oh yeah, I can't. I'm going to leave now, folks. I'm just going to grab a pizza here. See you.
Yeah. Which one do you prefer, Jonathan? Front end, back end, and why?
I'm backend heavy, and I prefer backend, but I also feel comfortable with front end tasks.
That's nice. So you mostly do back end, but you can do front end as well.
Today, I believe I would say to you JavaScript, React tasks.
Got it. And
Which framework do you use, Jonathan, on backend?
On backend, I use Spring. Okay. And I use microservices architecture, and I work with I work with a bunch of services and messaging too. That's it.
the messaging. Do you have
Yes.
Kafka, RabbitMQ? Which one do you use?
RabbitMQ. I don't know. I don't have knowledge in Kafka, knowledge or experience in Kafka, but I can do any task in RabbitMQ.
That was nice. That's
Cool.
nice.
Do you know something about binding keys? I always think it's a kind of confused.
Binding keys in RabbitMQ?
Yeah, because I know
Okay.
you have some configurations to link the topics with the consumers and listeners, and something related to binding keys and other stuffs.
Okay, yes. Route keys.
Yeah.
And, okay. Let me think how to
It's a hard
explain
question,
it.
right?
Yes, it's a hard question.
That's nice. Andre's making my job now. That's awesome, man. What was the question, Deandra?
How binding keys and route keys works in RabbitMQ and Quill. I worked with some projects 1 year ago, but I forget it how all of these things works.
Do you know the answer to that, Jonathan? I never heard the binding stuff.
So the binding itself, it's a relationship between queue and exchange. Do you know? Do you know what is exchange and queue?
Yeah.
So that's it.
So you have
it's a kind of connection.
Yeah, exchange have topics, right?
Yes. Yes, perfectly. In a nutshell, that's it. Binding keys is a way to connect exchange and queues, right?
Okay.
All right, I'll be receiving calls as well from the job now. I believe I gotta drop in like 4 minutes. Anything else you'd like to address today, guys? Like English corrections or anything? Yeah, let's wrap it up. All right, guys. Again, thank you for your time today. Andrea, thank you for swinging by on the last time. Jonathan as well. We're gonna probably schedule an mock interview with you two. Next Tuesday we have another encounter just with us. The idea, welcome to the club, Jonathan. The idea is to make sure you guys can be as fast as possible replying those technical questions.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Sorry to be late today. I was busy on our first hour of meeting.
No problem. No problem. Have a great one, everyone.
Bye bye.